Speaking of things beyond right and wrong, Angel's topic today addresses that very issue, and so we want to welcome Angel Santiago here to the Celebration Circle again. Life Coach Angel, all the way from Puerto Rico.
Thank you. Thank you. I'm so excited to be here again. Hope everybody's doing well. So today I just want to share I had a really profound experience with some colleagues of mine a few weeks ago. And we just started talking about this concept. And then right when I went to bed, I just started getting this download of information. I just started writing everything out. And I was like, oh man, this could really be a really good talk. And then the next day, Zed sent me a text. Hey, do you want to speak on Sunday? I was like, yes, I do. It's like I have something. So I'm going to share that with you today. And it basically goes that there are moments that in life, particularly in careers and relationships, when we're trying to play our roles really, really well. We're trying to be a good husband, a good wife, a good father, a good mother, a good friend, a good business owner, a good employee if you happen to be employed, whatever it is you're trying to do. And a lot of times we're so focused on getting it right that we end up getting it wrong. And so my invitation is when you're about to get it wrong, intervene and don't interfere. And I'm going to explain the differences. So my invitation is stop trying to get it right and get it raw. Because when you get raw, you're being real. And when you're being real, then you'll be all right. So it takes fear to interfere. So when you interfere, you enter fear. And you enter fear because you're having some sort of problem or challenge at that moment, something that's maybe triggering you, something you're worried about. So you enter fear. And as you know, most problems or challenges, they do have a solution. But for you to find that solution, you must make room. You must make room. What do I mean by that? We got to make room for silence. So when you make room for silence, you enter silence. You enter silence. And now you can listen. We got to make room for stillness. So when we make room for stillness, we enter stillness. And now we have room to feel. Then we just make room. And when we make room, we enter room. We enter the spaciousness. We enter room. And when I kept saying that word over and over again, enter room, enter room, enter room, enter, it sounds like interim. So we enter this interim space that you've just made room for by making room for silence, by making room for stillness. You go into this interim space. And when you're in this interim space, you have time, you have the time and the clarity to explore and find solutions. And I find that to be where you can have discernment. That's really when you can really have discernment about what's really happening in your life in that moment. And that window that you have to enter the room, to enter the interim space, especially when you're in fear, it's a really small window and it happens really quick. Especially if you get triggered and your limited self, the defense mechanisms that you've created are about to kick in. Your defense mechanisms are about to kick in. So you have a window where you can really get into that interim space and you can really, really make a difference. So that split second that you have, that's your window to intervene. And I was talking to my friend here in Puerto Rico about this, and I'm kind of giving her the rundown as I was kind of like explaining it to her. She says, that reminds me of an actual intervention, Like when you do an intervention for someone, you're very intentional about that. You even plan it out. So, and he said, and it comes from a place of love versus a place of fear. You interfere with processes. You may react too soon. You may jump to a conclusion. You may make a emotional decision because you're scared. You're in fear. So interfering versus intervening. Interfere requires fear. I mean, interfere requires fear. Intervention requires love. You're coming from a place of love. And what an intervention looks like is you being raw with yourself and raw with whoever you're with. And when you're raw, you're being real and you'll be all right. And if you think about what happens in an intervention, you're getting real with that person. You know, it's time to have a heart to heart. That's why they call it a heart to heart. Like we need to have a heart to heart, right? Because you got to get into your heart to have this kind of conversations, you know, and this kind of came up because, you know, I have a couple of friends and we're sort of we're becoming a tight community, the four of us. And, you know, we have conversations like this. We get really raw and very real. And we've talked about it. And I even remember in my past, in my last relationship, where it was like, I was so focused on getting it right because I was so afraid to get it wrong, whatever that was, that I ended up getting it wrong. And instead of saying, you know what, like, let me just be raw. Let me be raw with you right now. And what I'm kind of finding out is we spend so much time in our strength and trying to highlight our strengths and make sure that we're being good and we're being strong and we're being resilient, like all this stuff. And when our weaknesses show up, we like, I don't like that, or like, oh, I'm controlling, or oh, I'm a perfectionist, or I'm a people pleaser, or anything that feels not good, right? When you're willing to look at your weaknesses, when you're willing to look at those things that don't make you good, it doesn't make you any less of a human, or it doesn't make you any less of a person. In fact, it makes you a whole person. The fact that you have those moments where you're not being good at something, the fact that you have those moments where you're struggling with something. And like what I was talking in my last talk, what I was talking about the down wave and riding the wave, I recently saw a video where they did an experiment where they put like a big ball, like a metal ball, to ride a straight path, and then another one to ride a wavy path. And in the video, you see when they drop the balls at the same time, the ball that went on the wavy path got so much more ahead than the ball that didn't. So it was like going much more ahead, and then it came back, and the ball in the wavy path won the race. And it's just proof that you get further ahead in life with ups and downs. And in this case, the downs would be those things that make us not so good, like our weaknesses, right? But those are the moments where we have a huge opportunity, again, to get raw and to be real with someone. And I think that when we do that and we drop off this concept of wanting to be right and getting it right, I don't know, I think so much happens in that moment, particularly in the area of relationships. Like for those of you that have significant others, partners, you're a couple, you know, sometimes we don't want to disappoint them, we don't want to get it wrong with them, and we end up really getting it wrong by trying to get it right all the time. And I just feel like we have to create a new relationship with weaknesses. We have to create a new relationship with failure. I'm exploring with a Facebook group called Failure is an Option. You know, because we've been raised in a culture where failure is not an option, and so because we're afraid to fail, we're afraid to get it wrong. We end up not succeeding a lot of the times. And every person that I've talked to that is successful tells me, man, if it hadn't been for my failures, I wouldn't be here. Although say I've learned so much more from my failures than I've learned from my successes. Because if you think about it, if we touch back to my previous talk about riding the down wave, the up wave, right? Because you have the down and the up wave is just a result of how you manage the down. So if you manage the down really, really well, the up is just like the fruit of that. It's just a result. So really, we shouldn't. A lot of people just like, oh, I'm tired of the downs. I'm tired of the downs. I'm tired of the downs. Well, you don't get the up without down. So if we could learn to harness the power that there is in our downs, whatever the down may be, you get fired, you lose your house, you lose a relationship, you lose a loved one to death, who knows, you lose some money, whatever the down may be, you're dealing with a very difficult person in your life, um, I don't know, whatever the down may be. If you take a particle like an atom, right, and you split it in half, one half is not 50% charged and the other half is 50% charged. They're both 100% and 100%. So you take the positive and the negative, they're equally powerful. Take Star Wars, for example, the dark side, right? The dark side in Star Wars is very powerful. There's power in both the light side and the dark side. And we only want to focus on the light side. But there's so much power when we're in our downs if we use it wisely. If we take the time to be like, how is this trying to help me to get to where I'm going? And I guarantee you, if you ask yourself, for example, oh, I've been praying for, I always tell this joke. If you pray for a chocolate cake and you pray to God or to the universe or to divine source, whatever you pray to, bring me a chocolate cake. I would really love a chocolate cake. That's really something that I really, really want. And then you get a ding dong in your doorbell and you get a box with all the ingredients that you need to make that chocolate cake. And it's like, what? This is not what I asked for. I asked for the chocolate cake. Well, no, you're going to get the stuff you need to make the chocolate cake. Same with patience. If you're praying for patience, if you're praying for strength, you're not going to get like the quality like programmed into you. You're going to be put in situations where you're going to have to practice patience. You're going to be in situations that are going to test your strength, or they're going to give you the opportunity to flex that muscle. So, and usually that happens in our low moments. Everybody wants the high moments, but nobody wants the low moments. And there's so much power there. And I guarantee you, if you ask, well, what have you been praying for? Because when the low moment comes, we see it as a low moment and we don't get the benefit out of it. So it's like, what have I been praying for? Oh, this moment is actually helping me get there. Right. So if we could be a little bit neutral to the highs and the lows, to the good and the bad, and just be very neutral, and they're just perspectives of me that I need to learn from, it makes it a little bit easier. And if we can shift from needing to get it right, if we can shift from needing to be successful and not failing, because honestly, what the more and more I coach people and they talk to me about their fear of failure, it's really fear of success. Because you can get to success without the failures. So that would be like my biggest encouragement again, is when you're about to, when you think you're about to get it wrong and you're wanting to get it right, just drop it all off. Don't even get it wrong or get it right. Just get raw. Get raw. When you're raw, you're real. And when you're real, everything will be all right. Thank you so much.